The slap landed before she could finish her sentence. Her own wedding night, her best friend's perfume still hanging in the air of the hotel corridor, and her husband's hand across her face in front of every person who had come to celebrate them. Adiz was 3 months pregnant, cheeks burning, guests frozen in horrified silence, and in that single second she understood with the cold clarity of a woman whose last illusion has just been destroyed that she was never leaving this man. She was escaping him. What she did not know, could not have known, was that the Korean man watching from the end of that corridor with still eyes and a jaw like carved stone was about to offer her the most dangerous exit she would ever take. Now, before this story goes one word further, if you have ever trusted the wrong person with everything and had to rebuild yourself from the floor up, drop a fire in the comments right now. This story is for you. Subscribe before this video ends, because what happens to Adiz in the next 6 months will have you questioning everything you thought you knew about survival, love, and what a woman is capable of when she has absolutely nothing left to lose. Choose your side early. Team Adiz burns it all down, or team she should have walked away from everyone including him. Drop it below. We start now. The corridor of the Eco-Atlantic luxury hotel was wide enough for 8 people to walk abreast, and at 11:47 p.m. on the night before her wedding, Adiz Obi walked it alone. She had gone looking for Chisholm because Chisholm had her anxiety medication, and the rehearsal dinner had been loud and long, and the baby had been pressing against her ribs since 9 o'clock, and she just needed 1 tablet and 5 minutes of quiet. That was all. 1 tablet. 5 minutes. She found the bridal suite door open by 2 inches. She heard her best friend's laugh first. Low, private, the laugh Chisholm used when she thought no one could hear her. Then her fiancé's voice. Emeka, her Emeka, the man she had known for 4 years and agreed to marry in front of 300 people tomorrow morning, saying something soft and pleased in the darkness beyond the door. Adiz pushed the door open with 1 finger. She stood in the doorway for what felt like a long time but was probably 4 seconds. Chisholm saw her first. The laugh died. Then Emeka turned, and his face did the thing that faces do when people are caught, that rapid sequential collapse of expression, guilt chasing, shock chasing, the beginning of an excuse. Adiz said nothing. Her hand moved to her stomach without her deciding to move it. 3 months. The baby she had told him about 6 weeks ago, the baby he had held her and wept over with what she had believed was joy. Ada, Emeka started. Don't, she said. 1 word. Completely level. It's not. Don't, she said again. He moved toward her. She took 1 step back into the corridor. Behind her she was dimly aware of sound, voices, footsteps, guests still moving through the hotel's upper levels. Some of them drifting toward the corridor because the rehearsal dinner had just ended and people were heading to their rooms and the door was open and the light was on and human beings moved toward open doors and light like moths. Ada, listen to me. Emeka was in the doorway now, 1 hand reaching for her arm. She stepped back again. Don't touch me. You're overreacting. His voice shifted, she heard it, the precise moment it shifted from guilt into something harder. She had heard that shift before, in smaller arguments, over smaller things, and she had always told herself it was stress, it was pressure, it was not what it sounded like. This is not what you think it is. You're emotional because of the pregnancy and you're... Don't, she said, for the 3rd time. Stop saying that. His voice cracked outward suddenly, loud enough to reach the guests at the end of the corridor who had stopped moving and were now watching with the frozen, useless attention of people witnessing something they don't know how to interrupt. Stop standing there looking at me like that, like I'm some kind of, you don't know what it's been like, you don't know. Emeka. Her voice was still level. Dangerously level. I am 3 months pregnant. With your child. On the night before our wedding. And you. The slap came so fast that her brain registered the sound before the sensation, the sharp flat crack of his palm across her left cheek, loud in the corridor, loud enough to pull a gasp from the cluster of guests 20 meters away. Then silence. Complete, enormous silence. Adiz did not move. Her head had snapped to the right with the impact, and she brought it slowly back to center. Her hand was still on her stomach. The left side of her face was burning with a heat that would become, in the morning, a bruise she would spend an hour trying to decide what to do about. She looked at Emeka. He looked at his own hand. His expression had passed through shock and arrived somewhere she could not name. Not remorse exactly, more like a man who has done something irreversible and has not yet worked out what it means. Ada. She turned and walked away. Not ran. Walked. With her spine straight and her hand on her belly and the left side of her face on fire and 30 witnesses at her back, she walked to the end of the corridor, turned the corner, and kept walking until she found a chair in an alcove near the elevator bank and sat down in it and pressed both hands flat on her knees and stared at the wall in front of her and breathed. She sat like that for 2 minutes. That was when he sat down beside her. She didn't look at him immediately. She was aware of him, peripheral, male, the quiet, settled quality of someone who had made a decision before they moved, but she was also in the middle of the most significant crisis of her 27 years of life, and her brain was triaging. "You don't know me," the man said. He had a low voice. Accented English, Korean accent, she registered, precise and clean. "So I'm going to say one thing and then I'll leave if you want me to." She looked at him then. He was Korean. Somewhere in his early 40s, she guessed, though his face had the ageless quality of someone who has slept enough and worried efficiently. Lean, sharply featured, single-fold dark eyes that were looking at her with a directness she found startling, not invasive, not pitying, just completely honest. He wore a dark suit that cost more than her wedding dress. He was sitting in the alcove chair beside her as if he had been there for hours. On the small table between them, he placed a key card. "You don't have to go back to anything you just came from," he said. "That's all. That's the one thing." Adiz looked at the key card. Then at him. "Who are you?" Someone who watched what happened in that corridor and decided to do the one useful thing available to him. He paused. "My name is Jaewon. I have a suite on the 42nd floor. You can use it tonight. I'll arrange another room for myself. There's no condition attached to that offer." None. She studied him the way you study something you can't immediately classify. Men don't offer things without conditions. "Some do," he said. "Not many. But some." She looked at the key card again. Her cheek was still burning. Through the wall she could distantly hear voices, the sounds of a hotel managing the aftermath of a public scene, the specific murmur of people discussing something they witnessed. She picked up the key card. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was completely steady. He nodded once. He stood. He straightened his jacket. He said, "The suite has food and a doctor on call if you need one. The front desk knows your name." He paused. "I'm sorry about tonight. You deserved better." He walked away. Adiz sat for another moment, key card in her hand, and thought, "I don't know that man. I don't know what this costs. I am 3 months pregnant and my face hurts and my best friend and my fiancé were in my bridal suite and I am sitting in an alcove alone on the night before my wedding." She stood up. She took the elevator to the 42nd floor. She did not look back. "Are you still here? Good. Because I need you here for what comes next." If Adiz picking up that key card made your heart rate go up, subscribe right now. This channel tells the stories of women who make the impossible choice and live with what comes after. Like this video if you think she made the right call. And drop a comment, would you have picked up that key card? Tell me honestly. Because the next part of this story is where everything gets complicated. Her name was Adiz Obi, 27 years old. From Enugu State, though she'd spent the last 5 years in Lagos building a textile business from a second-hand sewing machine and a market stall that she had grown, stitch by stitch, into something that filled a proper shop with 3 employees. She was not soft. She had not been raised soft. Her mother had sewn school uniforms for other people's children while putting her own through university, and Adiz had inherited that particular brand of iron disguised as warmth. She had met Emeka at a trade fair. He was charming in the specific way that men who have been told all their lives that they are exceptional learn to be charming, effortlessly, habitually, without always meaning it. She had loved him the way you love someone when you are 23, and they are the first person who makes you feel like you are also exceptional. She had not known about Chisholm. Not until the door was opened by 2 inches and her best friend's laugh was in the air. She lay on the bed in the 42nd floor suite and stared at the ceiling. The suite was obscene in its luxury, wide, silent, smelling of expensive linen and something floral she couldn't name. The city of Lagos glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows. She had not turned on many lights. She lay fully clothed on top of the covers with her hand on her stomach, and she thought about the baby. 3 months. She had heard the heartbeat twice. The second time she had cried in the clinic and Emeka had held her hand, and she had believed, completely, that they were building something. Her phone had 43 messages. She turned it face down. She thought, in the morning I have a wedding. Then she thought, no, I don't. The certainty of it was surprising, not in its content, but in its texture. She had expected devastation, the kind that makes you unable to move. Instead, she felt something cleaner than that. Something that had arrived in the moment she turned and walked away from him in the corridor, as if the act of walking away had already done the work. She was not going to that wedding. She was not going back to the life she had agreed to. She needed to figure out, by morning, what she was going to instead. He knocked at 7 a.m. 3 light knocks, the way you knock on a door when you're aware it's early. Adiz had not slept. She had eaten everything in the minibar that was not alcoholic, spoken to her baby in the dark for a while, not out loud, just internally, the specific private conversation she had been having with this unborn person since the moment she found out. And then sat at the window watching Lagos wake up with the deliberate attention of someone who has decided to be present in their own life even when it is on fire. She opened the door. Jaewon stood in the corridor in a different suit, dark navy, same quality as the night before. He was holding 2 cups of coffee and his expression was the same as it had been the previous night, direct, unhurried, containing nothing she needed to defend herself against. I ordered breakfast, he said. It's set up in the corridor sitting area. You don't have to eat with me. I just didn't know if you'd thought about food. She looked at him. You thought about whether I'd thought about food. You're pregnant, he said simply. Food seemed relevant. She almost smiled. She stepped back and let him in. They sat at the small table by the window with the city below them going gold in early light and ate eggs and bread and drank coffee, decaf for her. He had already arranged that, and for the first 10 minutes neither of them said anything significant. Then she said, I'm not getting married today. I know, he said. I need to figure out what comes next. I know, he said again. I have a business in Lagos. A flat. A life that doesn't involve, she stopped. Restarted. I'm not running away. I want to be clear about that. I'm choosing. He looked at her across the table. There's a difference, he said. Most people don't know it. I know it, she said firmly. He was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm in Lagos for 3 more days. Business. After that I go back to Seoul. He wrapped both hands around his coffee cup. I have a proposal. Not, he paused, choosing the word carefully, not a personal one. A professional one. My company has been looking to partner with West African textile manufacturers for 2 years. We haven't found the right one. He looked at her. I looked you up last night. Adiz Textiles. The eco-market expansion. The commissions from the Abuja Cultural Center. She stared at him. You researched my business. Last night. I don't make proposals without research. I was having the worst night of my life last night. I know. And you still have a business that is worth proposing to. He met her eyes. What you do with your personal life is completely yours. But if you want a professional conversation about what comes next, I'm available for that conversation. Adiz looked at him for a long time. Who are you, she said. For the second time. But differently than the first time. Kwon Jaewon, he said. KJW Group. Seoul, Singapore, Lagos. He paused. And someone who does not believe that what happened to you last night is the end of your story. She looked out the window at Lagos. At the city she had built herself in, stitch by stitch. Neither do I, she said. She didn't go to Seoul immediately. She went home first, to her flat, to her mother who arrived from Enugu within 6 hours of the phone call with the energy of a woman who had been waiting her whole life to be needed at this exact level of emergency. She went to her business and sat with her seamstresses and touched the fabric bolts and reminded herself that she had built something real that no one's betrayal could unbuild. She told Emeka, through a lawyer's letter, that she was keeping the baby, that he would be contacted regarding his legal obligations, that she had nothing further to say to him directly, and that future communication would go through representation. He tried to call 47 times in the first week. She answered once, by accident. "Ada, please," he started. "I'm going to put the phone down now," she said. "The baby is mine," she said. "Good night, Emeka." She ended the call and sat for a moment, and then went back to what she had been doing, which was reviewing the proposal Kwon Jae-won had sent to her business email with the efficiency and detail of a man who did not make promises he hadn't already done the homework for. The proposal was extraordinary. Not the financial terms, though those were significant, but the structure of it. It wasn't an acquisition. It wasn't a buyout. It was a genuine partnership, her designs and production capability married to his distribution network across 7 Asian markets, her creative control fully protected in language that her own lawyer read twice and then said, "This is unusually fair." "I know," Adi said. "Do you trust him?" She thought about a man sitting down in an alcove at midnight with a key card and no condition attached. "Not yet," she said honestly. "But I trust the contract." She signed it. 3 months later, when her pregnancy was visible and her business had its first Seoul stockist, and she had rebuilt the interior of her flat to reflect the woman she was becoming rather than the one she had been, she accepted his invitation to visit the Seoul office. She did not know, boarding that flight, that she was also walking toward the most dangerous chapter of her life. If you just felt the shift in this story, that moment when you realize this is bigger than a cheating husband, you need to be subscribed right now. Because what Adiz finds in Seoul is something nobody told her about Kwon Jae-won. Something that changes every single thing. Like this video. Subscribe. And drop a comment. Did you trust Jae-won from the alcove, or were you suspicious from the beginning? Tell me everything. Seoul received her in autumn, the city draped in red and gold, the Han River gray and wide and beautiful, the air cold in a way Lagos had not prepared her for but which she found, to her surprise, clarifying rather than hostile. The KJW Group headquarters occupied the top 12 floors of a glass tower in Gangnam, and the offices were exactly what she would have designed if asked to express competence as architecture: clean, precise, nothing wasted, everything intentional. She was shown through by an assistant who was professionally warm, and she met the textile division head and saw the distribution infrastructure and sat through 3 hours of meetings that confirmed everything the contract had suggested. This was a serious operation run by serious people. She did not see Jae-won until the end of the day. He appeared in the doorway of the conference room as the last meeting was wrapping up, jacket off, sleeves rolled, looking like a man who had been in his own meetings for 10 hours and was running on competence rather than energy. He looked at her across the room. "How was it?" he asked. "Exactly what you said it would be," she said. "Good." He almost smiled. "Dinner? There's a restaurant nearby that does something with jollof-inspired Korean fusion that I think you'll have opinions about." "I always have opinions about jollof," she said. He did almost smile then. "I know. I read the interview you gave to the Lagos Food magazine." "You read a Lagos Food magazine?" "I read everything relevant to people I work with." "Do you consider me a person you work with or a person you—" She stopped. Chose a different end for that sentence. "A business partner." He looked at her steadily. "Both things can be developing simultaneously," he said. "I think you know that." She held his gaze for a moment. The conference room was emptying around them, assistants gathering papers, the city darkening outside the glass. "Dinner," she said. "But I'm ordering for myself." "I would be concerned if you didn't," he said. The danger arrived the way danger tends to in the lives of people who have stumbled into rooms that were built for different purposes, not announced, not dramatic, just suddenly present, like a smell you notice before you can name its source. It was the 4th week of her Seoul visit, extended twice, because the partnership was moving faster than projected and because, she admitted to herself in the honest hours of early morning, she was not ready to leave. She had begun to know the city in the specific way you begin to know places that suit you. The specific coffee shop on the corner near the office. The fabric market in Dongdaemun that made her feel like home. The Han River walk at 6 a.m. when the city was quiet and her baby moved in her, and she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. She had begun to know Jaewon too. Not in the way she had known Emeka, not with her eyes closed, with assumption and habit and comfortable blindness. She was watching Jaewon with both eyes open, cataloging the details, the way he listened with his whole body, the way he said what he meant without decoration. The way he looked at her pregnancy not as a complication, but as a fact of her life that he was simply incorporating into how he planned things. He had arranged that her hotel room had a fridge stocked with the specific things she had mentioned craving. He had sent her mother, still in Lagos, monitoring from afar with the ferocity of a woman who had raised a daughter alone, a video message introducing himself in English precise enough to be respectful and warm enough to be human. She had watched her mother watch the video. Her mother had said, which in Enugu mother language meant more than it sounded like. The danger came on a Tuesday. She was leaving the office building at 7 p.m. when a car pulled up, black, expensive, wrong, and a man got out of the back who was not a driver and not anyone she recognized. He was Korean, middle-aged, wearing a suit that was expensive in a way that felt like warning rather than success. He looked at her with the specific assessment of someone who has already decided what she is worth to them. "Ms. Obi," he said. In English. A moment. "I don't have one," she said, and kept walking. His hand closed around her arm. She stopped, looked down at his hand, looked up at his face. "I would remove that," she said quietly, "before I start making noise in front of this building." He removed it. But he didn't step back. "You should know who you're in business with," he said. Kwon Jae-won has enemies. People who are owed things that he has chosen not to pay. Those people have noticed that he has something new to care about. His eyes dropped briefly to her visible pregnancy. "That makes you relevant to a conversation you weren't aware was happening." She looked at him for a long moment. Her heart was doing something loud in her chest, but her face had made a decision to be completely unreadable. "Who are you?" she said. He handed her a card. No name. Just a number and a symbol she didn't recognize. "Think about how well you actually know him," he said. "Then decide if the contract was worth it." He got back in the car. The car left. Adi stood on the pavement outside the KJW building in the Seoul autumn evening with a card in her hand and her baby pressing against her ribs, and the specific cold feeling of a woman who has walked into a room that has more doors than she was told about. She went back inside. She took the elevator to the 41st floor. She walked into Jaewon's office without knocking. He looked up from his desk. He read her face in exactly the way she had come to understand he read things immediately, completely, without pretending he hadn't. "Sit down," he said. "Tell me who you actually are," she said. "Standing. All of it. Right now." He told her. Not everything at once, it came in layers over 2 hours, with the city going fully dark outside and neither of them moving and Adi's sitting eventually because her back was aching and her baby was pressing, and she needed to hear this properly. His father had built KJW Group from the ground up in the 80s and 90s, legitimately mostly, in the way that large fortunes built in that era were mostly legitimate. But the growth had required alliances, and some of those alliances had been with people whose money moved in directions that regulators preferred not to follow. His father had known this. His father had made peace with this. Jaewon had inherited the company at 34 when his father's heart stopped during a board meeting, and had spent the 7 years since systematically, carefully, expensively untangling the group from those alliances. He had paid off obligations. He had restructured. He had hired the kind of lawyers who specialized in making the past stay in the past. He had made progress. Significant progress. But progress, with certain kinds of people, created its own problems. Men who had expected to maintain their access to KJW's infrastructure were not pleased by a methodical younger man who refused to be managed. And they had begun, in the last 18 months, to apply pressure in the specific creative way that men with old money and long memories apply pressure. "The man outside," Adiz said. "His name is Shin Dae-ho," Jaewon said. "He represents a group of investors who believe they are owed continued access to KJW's distribution channels. They are not. Their legal claim is non-existent. Their willingness to operate outside legal frameworks, however, is," he paused. "Significant." Adiz looked at him. "And you didn't tell me this before I flew to Seoul." I didn't expect them to move this quickly. His jaw tightened. That was a miscalculation. I'm sorry. You're sorry, she said flatly. I am. Genuinely. I'm 5 months pregnant, J1. I came here for a business partnership. I did not sign up to be leverage in someone else's war. You're not leverage, he said, and the sharpness in his voice was the first time she'd heard it without control around the edges. You will not be leverage. I will make sure of that. How? By resolving this faster than I planned to. He looked at her steadily. And by asking you to trust me for a specific period of time while I do. You're asking me to trust you, she said. After telling me everything you just told me. Yes. That's either very honest or very manipulative. It's honest, he said. I'm aware it looks like both. Adiz looked at the city outside the window. Seoul, vast and glittering and full of lives she didn't know anything about. She thought about the card in her pocket. About Emika's hand across her face. About the 43 messages she hadn't answered. About her mother's about the fabric market in Dongdaemun where she'd spent 2 hours on a Saturday touching bolt after bolt and feeling more like herself than she had in years. She thought about the contract that her lawyer had called unusually fair. She thought about a man in an alcove at midnight with a key card and the words, "No condition attached." I want daily transparency, she said. Every development. Before it happens if possible, immediately after if not. I want my own security contact, someone I choose, not someone you assign. She put her hand on her belly. And I want a plan for what happens to this baby if this situation escalates beyond what either of us has predicted. A real plan, written down. He looked at her for a long moment. Done, he said. All of it. I'm not doing this because I trust you completely, she said. I'm doing this because I trust you more than any other option currently available to me, and I am smart enough to know the difference between those two things. I know, he said quietly. And J1. Yes. If you miscalculate again, she said, and my child is affected by it in any way, I will burn the partnership to the ground and build something new somewhere else, and you will never find a way back in. He held her gaze. I know, he said again. And the way he said it, not defensive, not managing her, just completely accepting the weight of what she'd said, was the thing that made her believe him. The resolution of the Shin Dae-ho situation took 4 months, 3 lawyers, 1 regulatory filing, 2 very targeted leaks to 2 very specific financial journalists, and a board decision that removed the last structural access point the old alliance had been using. It was not dramatic. It was not violent. It was the kind of war that happens in documents and meeting rooms, and it was devastating in the specific way that legal and financial pressure is devastating slowly, completely, and without any visible blood. During those 4 months, Adiz's daughter was born. A girl. 6 pounds, 9 ounces. Born in a Seoul hospital on a Thursday morning in February, with the specific loud announcement of a baby who had decided the world needed to know she had arrived. Adiz held her and felt the same thing she had felt when she had first held the idea of this child, not happiness exactly, something larger. Something that had been building since a hotel corridor in Lagos and a key card on a table and a choice made with everything uncertain and nothing guaranteed. She named her Chisomo. It meant God's grace. She had chosen a name that contained a meaning, not a history. Jaewon was in the corridor. He had been in the corridor for 6 hours. When the nurse brought him in, he stood at the edge of the room and looked at them both, Adiz in the hospital bed, Chisomo on her chest, with an expression she had never seen on his face before. Something that had come loose from all his control and was just sitting there, unmanaged and completely honest. She's perfect, he said. She's furious, Adiz said. She's been furious since she arrived. Good, he said. She'll need that. Adiz looked at him across the room. At this man who had sat beside her in an alcove when she had nothing and offered her an exit with no condition attached, and then told her the dangerous truth about himself when he could have kept it hidden, and then kept every single promise he had made in a difficult season. Come here, she said. He crossed the room. He sat in the chair beside the bed. He looked at Chisomo. She has your jaw, he said. She has my mother's jaw, Adiz corrected. My mother is going to be insufferable about it. When does she arrive? Tomorrow. She's already packed. She packed before I called her. He almost smiled. Then fully smiled. The real one, the rare one, the one that changed his whole face. Adiz watched it happen and thought, there it is. There is the thing I have been watching for without naming what I was watching for. J1, she said. Yes. I'm not in a hurry, she said. For anything. I want you to know that. I'm not. This doesn't need to be decided or declared or structured. I just want to be here. In this room. With her. And with you close by. That's enough for right now. He looked at her. That's enough for me too, he said. Good, she said. Chisomo made a sound, indignant, proprietary, the sound of a baby who has opinions about the direction of the conversation. Adiz laughed. A real laugh, sudden and bright, the kind that arrived from the deepest part of her. The part that had survived a corridor in Lagos and a slap and 43 unanswered calls and a strange man's card outside a Seoul office building and 4 months of a war fought in documents. The part that had made it through entirely intact. She looked down at her daughter. I know, she said to Chisomo. I know. We made it. And that is where Adiz's story lands, not at a fairy tale ending, because women who have walked through what she walked through don't get fairy tales, they get something better. They get truth. They get a life that was chosen rather than inherited. They get a daughter with a jaw like a declaration and a name that means grace. They get a business in 7 Asian markets and a partnership built on unusually fair contracts and a man who sat down in an alcove at midnight with nothing to gain and offered an exit with no condition attached. Emeka's lawyer contacted hers regarding paternity 4 months after Chisomo's birth. The matter was resolved legally, cleanly, and with the minimum possible drama, which is exactly the amount of drama Adiz had decided to allocate to Emeka for the rest of her life. Chisholm, her former best friend, sent a message once. Adiz read it. She did not respond. Not out of bitterness. Out of the quiet recognition that some doors, once closed, should stay closed not because of what's behind them, but because of what's in front of you. What was in front of Adiz Obi was considerable. She knew it. She walked toward it anyway. Both eyes open. Hand on her own life. Her daughter on her hip and her business in her name and herself, all of herself, exactly where she had put her. If this story reached something real in you, if Adiz walked down that corridor, her hand on her stomach, her spine straight after the slap, if any of that landed somewhere in your chest that needed it, then this is your moment. Subscribe to this channel right now because we tell these stories for a reason. We tell them for every woman who has ever been in a corridor with everything falling apart and had to decide in real time who she was going to be on the other side of it. Like this video. It takes 2 seconds, and it means this story reaches more people who need it. Share it with someone who is rebuilding right now. Someone who is in the before and needs to see the after. And drop a comment, not just a reaction, a real one. What was the moment in this story that you felt most in your body? Was it the slap? The keycard? The boardroom where she laid out her terms? Or was it Chisomo arriving, loud and furious and perfect, into a life her mother had built from scratch? Tell me. Because Adiz's story is not the only one we have to tell. And every comment you leave helps us tell the next one. We are not done. Not even close.